Hey guys, I'm Ray, and we are streaming blacksmithing. I am having a little bit of lag already, and there's my headphones. I can't hear myself because I have the fan going already. Um, let's let's stand here. Hopefully, I am not directly in the wind of the fan, but step back like so, and I am. I moved the fan because it used to be like blowing directly on me. Anyway, let's see. Am I doing a little bit better? The router. It looks like I'm having a bunch of render lag right now. So I'm thinking that it is the laptop itself and not the internet. I did actually do an internet test before I started. I think my computer is just starting to get to the point where Windows is trying to break it. So I think this weekend I'm going to see about maybe finding one of the old desktops and bring it out here because I think that it's the computer that is having trouble at this point. The internet was fine last I knew. Okay. Yeah, I've got some like weird FPS and stuff going on, and I really think it seems like I found a little meter in the OBS, and it tells me like where my frames are dropping, and it is encoding lag, or I guess render lag, and that is the computer not being able to keep up with the stream itself. So that's the issue there, I think. Yes, smash the laptop. Yes, smash. Okay. So today I had I guess it was last night. I had a really. It could be a genius idea or it could be a terrible idea, and today we are going to kind of decide whether it's a terrible idea or a great idea. And I might ruin the piece of steel, or I might do something amazing. So today, or this last week, the last 2 days, yeah, Friday and Wednesday, I've been working with this piece of Atlantic 33, which, if you are unfamiliar, if this is your first time here, Atlantic 33 is a alloy of steel that was developed for the U.S. Navy. It is a low carbon hard steel that was developed so that you didn't have to uh, temper it when working or making tools in a submarine. So we've been kind of playing with it, trying to decide what type of or what temperature it's going to take to work it. And we've just been having a little bit of trouble with it. Last Wednesday, or I guess Wednesday, we finally got to the point where we were starting to move it. And we did actually increase the width of this bar by 1/8 of an inch, which is not a lot, but it is something. So I was pretty happy with that. So I was really struggling because I really want to make a hammer eye drift out of this piece of steel. And a hammer eye drift is a tool that is used in creating the eyes of hammers so that you can, put the handle in the hammer itself. So they're just long pieces of oval steel that you just heat up the hammer headstock, and then you use it to punch out that hole. And so this right here is a hammer eye punch. And so this is a standard hammer eye hole. And so it is a standard hammer eye hole punch. And so I need this drift to match this punch. So once I punch the hole out with this guy right here, I need this to kind of increase the size of the hole and back it while I am working on the hammer itself so that I don't accidentally crush that hole. So these two need to match. And if we look at the two, I'm going to change views to this guy so you can see it a little bit closer. So if you look at these guys, you can totally see that this guy is a lot skinnier. Like the piece of steel is a significant amount skinnier than the punch itself, right? So I needed to widen this out so that these two pieces would match, right? And that's why I was trying to drift, or I mean, I guess to compress the steel by upsetting it. So my crazy idea is instead of hammering it on its four sides, I'm going to hammer it on the corners. So if you look at it this way, there's a lot less difference between the two, right? So this is honestly almost the same size, and I have a whole bunch more material that I can compress and make it the right size. In theory. So the theory is that if I compress this steel and draw it down from the corners instead of the flats, I should be able to move the material in a way that will allow this drift to match this punch. So, and the problem is, I mean, it sounds ingenious in theory in my head, but I've never made a drift before. So this could be a crazy idea and it could be a disaster, but I'm willing to try. So that's what we're going to do for the next couple of streams. We're going to try and make this guy into a hammer eye drift. Now, I'm kind of weak. Well, not weak, but like I don't have a lot of stamina. And so I'm not going to be able to do all this drawing down by hand on such a really fat piece of steel. So I really want to draw out the press, or draw on the press. But unfortunately, drawing on the corners, it's too wide for the press. So that means that I have to actually do a little bit of hand hammering to compress this so that it will go under the press dies. So that's what we're going to start with today. Cool. Good evening, Sandwich. Welcome in. So, fingers crossed. Wish me luck, guys. I think this will work, but it might not. This might be a disaster. And, I mean, it's a learning experience either way. So, we're going to have some fun. All right. So, first things first. We always start up our forge. Let's see if we can do this properly. So we're going to use the small forge today because it is hotter than blazes still. And I also, okay, so theoretically this should be working. All right, cool. All right. So this one gets hotter than the big one, and it also produces less ambient heat. So now that I put that away, I'm going to open the garage door behind us, and we've got the fan going. Hopefully, I can stay out here for a while. As Kiri always stresses, either it works or it's still content, right? That is exactly right. There is no bad press. They always say, you know, any press is good press. So any content is good content. So we're gonna try it. So in the forge we go. So I actually get to use the little tool rest. So that's really cool. Yay, exciting. So hopefully that heats up relatively fast. So today I only made one water because my partner got me a water can So I guess it's like I don't know. It looks like a gas can, but it's made for water. So it's got a little spigot at the bottom, and so I filled it with like 5 or 6 of these worth of water. And so we're gonna see if maybe I can, I don't have to go in the house as often for water. We'll see if it can remain cool enough. So I am hoping that the mic is picking me up relatively easily. I have the fan; it's actually directing the air a flow like right over that way. So by standing here, hopefully, fingers crossed, uh, the air blow or the flowing air is missing the microphone and still hitting me. So I don't know if it's working or not. It's a thing I'm gonna try. But yeah. So the other thing that I do need to talk about is there is a storm rolling in again. It's a mini storm. There's only like one giant cloud. So like out that way, I can see the storm clouds, but out that way and that way, there's just big puffy cumulus clouds. So we'll see what happens. If it gets lightningy around here, I will have to end the stream early. The other reason that I would end the stream early is if I just get too hot. So we will be streaming for as long as we can. The better you optimize not having to run into the house to get water, the more you might have to run into the house to get rid of water. I know, right? I mean, getting water or pee breaks. I don't know. I don't know what's worse. Probably the pee breaks because it probably takes longer to do that than for me to grab a Gatorade. I don't know. We'll see. All I know is I need to keep my kidneys hydrated. All right. So the end of this bar is pretty hot. So I'm going to shove it a little bit further in there so that we can get a little bit more heat back towards the center. Like I said, I want to start drawing this out at the end, but I need to start at the anvil. So because the corners are just too wide for a gap in the press. We seem to be doing all right. So what all is happening? Oh, so Quad State, which is the next major outing that I'm planning on, has released their dates. So the dates for Quad State are September 22nd or 27th and 28th. So that is a Friday and a Saturday. So we will probably be streaming from Quad State on the 27th of September. So that'll be a fun stream. I've got a couple of people who are interested in talking to me already at Quad State, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I will definitely be setting up some more interviews and some more stuff to do while we're there. Hopefully, within the stream and also the YouTube channel, we'll have some really amazing content coming out soon. This fall. So next week's video is already done for Wednesday, and it is going to be the soapstone holder, which is, where'd I put it? It's right here. So we started this guy on stream, but I wasn't able to finish it on stream. So I finished it on my own time, and I recorded it. So I finished editing that, and that will come out on Wednesday, so you guys will be able to see how I went about making this guy. So hopefully you guys will like that. It's a little lower quality than the videos that I have been producing, but that's because I am still getting used to shooting things myself. When I am out and about, my partner shoots things for me, so I don't have to worry about it. But I'm not as good of a shooter as he is, so we'll see. And by shooter, I mean camera shooter, like a video. I'm not as good at video shooting, not gun shooting or range shooting. I'm not amazingly good at that either. I'm better with a rifle than a pistol, but you know, only at the range. All right, let's do our first heat. Let's see. Where can I stick the inset where it's gonna be all right? Maybe if I squish it in a little bit. I hope you guys can still see that. But I want you guys to be able to see the full top of the anvil. All right. Let's do this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is we kind of mushroomed that top. So I'm going to kind of bring that back. Now we're going to come back and start squishing this top corner. It's going to be a lot slower hammer blows with a lot more effort. All right. So now we're going to go over here and I'm going to take a look at this. And it looks like we now have the first 1.5 inches. So right about here is the right size. So we need to bring that corner down a little bit further back so that I can start drawing down from about here, I think. So we're going to heat this steel again. This steel is tough. Yes, it is. Mahalo, welcome in. The steel is totally tough. And I'm just like, I don't have the stamina to do this by hand all day. So I'm hoping that within 3 to 4 heats total, I'll be able to go from the anvil over to the press. And then we'll just use the press from there on to do all of the drawing. And so that is the goal. And we will actually have to do a little bit more hand hammering to bring the diamond shape down, I guess. But we'll come to that problem when we get there. Or loose grip. So you are still hitting with a loose grip. I am still hitting with a loose grip. So when I hold my hammer, I'll show you how I hold my hammer. All right, so when I hold my hammer, let's get rid of those real fast. So I hold my hammer like so, right? So most of the grip is in my first knuckle or my first finger and my thumb, right? So I hold my hammer like this. And so when I lift the hammer up and I drop it, I'm actually using my fingers to kind of whip it down. So it's this motion with my hand as well as the full arm, full body. So it's like this motion. So I'm trying not to go full force on the anvil without, without any steel on it. But yeah, it is a full body with fingers whipping motion, if that makes sense. So you get a little bit of extra power from those fingers. How do you say let's burn that bridge when we get there? um, we'll come to, or we'll come to that bridge when we get there, I guess. And I mean, maybe we'll burn that bridge. I don't know. When I start thinking about idioms, I have this tendency to mix them up. So, the whole not the brightest crayon in the box and not the brightest tool in the shed. I have a tendency to be like, not the brightest crayon in the shed, or, stuff like that. So, brains. Yeah, it's cross that bridge when we come to it. We will cross that bridge when we come to it. So that's what we're going to do. Uh, like I said, we're doing some hand forging to get those corners low enough that we can throw it through the press. But we'll have to do that on the opposite set of corners as well. So we'll kind of have to squish it into a diamond shape. So we'll see. We'll see what we can do with it. Would you develop more force by gripping the hander further at the end? Less control, though, I guess. Yeah, so when you have when you're doing more controlled work, you're hammering, or you're using you're choking up the hammer closer to the head, right? When you want to put more power, you do bring your hand back, right? You can still do that same motion, but that motion is really hard for me to do while I'm demonstrating the technique, right? So I actually hold the hammer about here when I'm actually forging, right? Because this is the comfortable area of the hammer for me, like balance wise. Um, or like it is a balance between, power and control. So I have a tendency to hold the hammer here when I'm trying to heavy forge. But when I'm doing more delicate work, I will hold the hammer much closer to the head. So when I was demonstrating, yes, I was choking up on the hammer so that I could have a little bit more control and make sure that I didn't injure myself or damage the soft plateless anvil. And so that is so, like, when you are using a hammer as a jeweler, you're going to use it very close to the tip. Like, this is a jeweler's a sort of a jeweler's hammer. This is actually technically a car body hammer. Anyway, when I'm using it really precisely, I will hold it up here. Sometimes I'll actually hold it by the head itself, depending on how much control I want. And then the further back I go, the more power I can get out of this hammer. But any tiny little movement is going to move the head back and forth. So like this tiny little movement, I'm getting like half inch or like tiny little movement of my hand, and I'm getting about a half inch variance on the head of this hammer. So this is, so for this hammer, my ideal grip is about here when I'm doing a full forging swing. When I'm doing more of a planishing swing or a flattening swing, my grip goes a little bit higher. I don't tend to go more like this because the steel does get hot and it will burn my knuckles at this point. But, about here, when I'm trying to get a really good flat hit, very controlled and precise. Whereas, full force forging. I see. Thanks. Yeah. So that's the theory anyway. All right. Let's do another heat. Let me check my cameras real fast just to make sure that it is still functioning. Yes, it is. All right, cool. Let's do another heat. And I think we decided we were going to do that. All righty. Woo! That's nice and glowy. Look at that. All right. Got a little bit of variance here. I'm going to try and correct that a little bit. But really what I should be doing is starting on this corner. All right, more heat. Okay, where did I stick my... And I am getting quite a lot of scale on the anvil face today because we've been working this steel for quite some time. Alrighty. So I figure if I screw up and I don't have enough material for a hammer eye drift, I should, in theory, fingers crossed, be able to turn this from a hammer eye drift to an axe eye drift. So the main difference between a hammer eye drift and an axe eye drift is that a hammer eye drift is oval shaped. So if you look at the hammer eye here, it is an oval shape for this hammer. But if you were to look at an axe head, like the eye on that is a teardrop shape. So it is rounded on one side and pointed at the other. And I don't have an axe here in the shop to show you guys, but I will make sure that if I'll try and make this into a short, and I will show you the teardrop shape on the YouTube short if I make one. There was quite some stuff flying off during the last heat. Yeah, so we've been working the steel quite a lot, and this steel was getting really, really hot. So that is almost a forge welding heat. So that is scale and oxidation coming off of the edges of the piece of steel. So that's scale. So that it's very important to clean that off of the anvil face. And if you were forge welding, you'd also want to clean that off. So we've got quite a bit of heat in that piece. And so I've been putting it back in the fire a lot hotter than I normally put mild steel in. And that's because this piece, it's so hard that it doesn't work for nearly as long as a piece of mild steel would. So it takes less time to heat it up to temperature, but I get less work time. Do that if it will let me. There we go. All right, let's do another heat. Ooh, look at that glow. That is a gorgeous glow. Alrighty, more heat. We're getting there. Alright. The flames coming out of the forge seem greenish. Is that due to the material of the forge or due to something in that steel? So my theory is that it is something in the steel itself. That forge typically has a yellow to blue splay all the way up into a clear flame. So any green or any other colors that you see are likely from that steel alloy. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the metallurgical properties of this steel is, so I don't know like how much of different alloys or like what is alloyed in it. So I couldn't tell you exactly why the green flames are, but you know, I do imagine that it is something in the steel. I see. Let's see. Let's ask Google. So what color would you guys imagine that color is? Like, I don't know. It looks almost mint green to me. What element burns green? Boron, copper, non-Pallades, barium, manganese. So it could be one of those elements. So in theory, copper would make it a little bit more softer. And I'm not familiar with the properties of barium, boron, or manganese, so I'm not sure what those would do. There is a part of me that wonders if it's not manganese, but because I believe manganese brings things a little bit more, or I believe that manganese is one of the elements that is in like the nickel alloys that I used to use in my silversmithing practice discs. So I don't know, maybe it might be manganese. There's a chance, but I mean, I don't know for sure. Manganese, I have heard the connection with steel, I think. Yeah, manganese is more popular alloy ingredient. It really is. So that would be my guess, my educated guess. But like I said, I don't know what is actually in the Atlantic 33. So I would have to like look that up, and it may be proprietary. A lot of times those proprietary alloys have a tendency to have non-disclosure agreements on what is actually inside of them. That way the proprietor is the only one who can make that alloy. So I don't know for sure, but that would be my guess, is manganese. All right, let's do another heat. Woohoo! So bright. All right, I'm gonna try and shore this up. It's a little bit wobbly. So now I'm gonna actually compare this together, and that's actually looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. It's not that far off. So if I change it, the orientation to here and here, yeah, look at that. It matches pretty good. So I think what we're gonna do is move on from here. We're gonna move on to the press. We'll start drawing that down. So I don't know. This might have actually been a pretty decent idea. Fingers crossed I don't completely screw it up while we're on the press. I doubt it. Theoretically, it should work beautifully, but you never know. So because we are going to move from the anvil to the press, I'm going to move our close-up cam so you guys can kind of see what's going on. So let me do that real fast. Woo! Alrighty. You guys will be able to see me moving the camera around. Yes, yes. That's where I want to be, I think. And then I'm going to move this way. Can I get you any closer? Alright, coolians. I don't think I can actually zoom you any further in on that lens, unfortunately. Okay. That is a really big block of text. It says, translation from German Wikipedia. Another important property of manganese in steel is that it increases the hardenability of steel. In general, manganese in steel increases tensile strength, yield strength, and hot formability, in addition to hardening and nitrability. While manganese has no effect on notch impact strength or corrosion resistance, it reduces wear resistance, cold formability, machinability, hardening, temperature, and weldability. That does have a lot of parameters. It also makes me believe that yes, that's what's in it. It aligns very closely with the way this steel works. All right. Okay. So if I go to camera 2, I can stick. Let's see, where's the best place? I'll stick it over there. And let me start recording again. Okay. We're going to come over here and use the press, see what we can do with it. Very nice, very nice. I'm going to bring you over to this guy. You can kind of see that we've gotten a pretty decent amount of movement in there. There's some ripples in there. I think that's going to be pretty good. I do want to see if it's... Okay. I will need to do a little bit of hand forging back here. It is a little bit wide still. But not too much. So I believe that we're still getting okay lag, but I do see that it is dropping some frames. Hopefully you guys aren't noticing it. I probably will later on, but when I'm editing it, but hopefully you guys aren't seeing the drop frame. I wanted it to go. So hopefully, we'll get a good hammer eye drift out of that. Once we get that hammer eye drift done, I will be cleaning up the punch, and then I've got a few pieces of steel that I'd like to make into. Yeah, the stream is gone. No. Okay, so we are completely disconnecting. And it's back. Okay. All right, so right now my internet is being funky. It looks like I am at a yellow. So it might be a little bit choppy. I apologize for that. My internet's been a little bit slow lately. They have been working on the lines in the area. So we did get a text about that on Monday. So I apologize if there's any drops. Fingers crossed, we don't have a complete cutout. Um, but I'll do my best. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, let's do another heat. Yeah, the network's being fussy today. There's a storm brewing, and then the lines have also been a little bit funky. They've been working on them. There we go. I just refreshed. Okay. Yeah, like I said, they're working on the lines lately, and so unfortunately, there might be a few drops. But there shouldn't be anything like what it used to be in last spring.